Welcome back to the DNA Pest Control Podcast. Aaron, back in the forest.
I am. I'm back home. This is our background now. And Daniel with the green screen.
You like it?
Yeah. It's cool.
When I figured out I could do it, I was like, oh man. I was like,
I
it looks perfect. I was like, I'm doing it. I gotta do it.
I had to set my game up with the background, so I'm working on
it. I know. It looks good. You got a little noise in the background, but it's okay, guys. Listen past it. Don't worry.
Yeah, we'll be good.
Yeah. So today we're going to be going over day 2 of Pest World 2024 in Denver. We talked about, if you didn't listen to the past episodes, we can do a quick recap. We talk about kind of the intro into Pest World and what really day 1 looked like for us, the expo and everything. We're not going to dive too deep into the expo side of it on day 2 and day 3 because that was the bulk of the classes. And that's usually what everybody's going to. A lot of local technicians will go in because you get CEU credits. So if your state requires it, Pest World's great for that because you'll get those. If it is, well, depending on the class, you can get those credits, right?
Yeah.
It's not every class. But we're going to go over our classes that we went to and really diving in a little bit deeper about the ones we chose, why we chose them, and even talk about the good. And always we talk about the bad.
We do.
Yeah, well, I want people to be better. So,
yeah.
So let's jump. Aaron, what was your first class in day 2, Pest World?
Day 2, so that Thursday, our first class was the Unlocking the Secrets of Pest Control Sales by Pest Posse.
Mm-hmm.
Correct? Yeah, so obviously you guys have known, we've had Pest Posse on our podcast. We've been on their podcast. But it was really cool. We even mentioned it back in our last episode. They had a booth and a class, so we were inclined to check it out and see what was going on. And it was actually really cool because, Foster had written that book about the fundamentals of pest control sales. And what I took from it, it's a very good training course for anybody who's getting into pest control sales or getting into sales in general. And I really appreciated his take on it in terms of the fact we went on relationship-based selling, not selling to people who don't need services, the importance of follow-up. So kind of how to navigate that. And I think the thing that I took the most from that is you are confident and you are calm with it. You don't do the you don't go jump through a bunch of hoops. You don't do any backflips. There doesn't need to be that way. That's not really the way of selling anymore. But obviously, putting the fact that you are here to give them a bid for service, and kind of navigating that in between. So I thought it was a great class, and it was a lot of great things that I'm going to take back to the sales team. Now we have a full-time sales rep now that I've actually implemented some of the things that they taught in the class, kind of to frame that training program for salespeople.
Yeah, no, he did a good job bringing it really back down to the basics for a lot of people, which I appreciated because shockingly, and I'm going to say shockingly, and I'm sure they're used to this by now from everything that they're doing, but it shocked me how many people who have been in this industry for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years have no idea about sales. They knew nothing. I mean, some of the questions, which they were good questions, but I'm looking at this guy and I'm like, you got to be 50, 60 years old. You got to have been in this industry. You have your own pest control company and you don't even know some of the basics of sales, but that it goes back to the point of educate yourself. You have to educate yourself in whatever industry you're in. It's all about growing. It's all about becoming better. Don't stay stagnant. You think that you're at the top of the game. You have to keep learning. It doesn't go away. And so how they structured that class and they actually kept it pretty basic. I will say they did do a good job on the class itself, being informative, bringing people involvement, because a lot of the other classes, unfortunately, didn't do that. And, sure. And even some of their titles, it has nothing to do with your class.
No, exactly.
So I did like that. And guys, if you don't know what we're talking about, who's Pest Posse, you haven't heard of them, We have that one. They have an app that they just came out with, and they
Hmm.
launched it at Pest World. So you can get on there and you can get a ton of free content. They put out, what is it? The first week of the month. I think it's the first Monday.
I
They do
believe so.
a live, they do a live show. Sorry, Pest Posse, if I'm butchering this, but they do a live show. You can go and watch. They always have on different guests. We were on there, so we had the privilege to get onto their show as well. They had us on there, but they bring on different people, different professionals. And it's really training courses for technicians. Even part of that class as they actually asked us, which was pretty cool, is they brought us up and they said, hey, this is DNA. They do podcasts, and they asked us a question, is how many technicians are actually trained? And the honest answer is not very many.
No.
Very poorly trained. They don't understand what's going on. They don't understand the chemicals. They may know the service side of it, how to spray the outside of a foundation and stuff, right? Um, but really diving in past that and understanding what they're doing and how they're doing things, they bring that in there, and they're really trying to train guys up and put back this information into the hands of the technicians to really rise the whole industry, just like what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Uh, but going back to their class is, yeah, the fundamentals of the sales side, they did do good on that. They hit on a lot of that stuff. One thing that they put on there, and I'm going to call them out on here. Should I? Should I?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
They stole it. They stole it from me. No, maybe they didn't. Um, but one thing that we've talked about on the episode, and I loved seeing that up there on the slide that they had, one of it was essentially, what is your current company doing or not doing that you would like them to do? And I
So
love,
simple.
so simple, but I love saying that, especially in commercial settings, not necessarily homeowners. It still can work, but when you get into a professional setting, gas stations, apartment complexes, any commercial setting like that, it's so awesome, because it's just gold,
Because
and it makes people think.
they're literally telling you what you need to do to get the account after that question. It's literally a cheat code.
It is. And the other thing is, even if you don't get the sell, this is the best part about it. You don't get the sell, you walk away. You still have that information of, this person wants that. So how can
Hmm.
I implement that into my pest control company to be able to grow to that next level? Or what can I do and bring that back to management to say, hey, we may want to look at doing it this way because this is what people want.
Yeah. And guys, the cool thing is sometimes the answers to those questions are as simple as the company said they'd be here from 9 to 12 each day and they're never on time. And that's
Mhm.
the only issue. You know what I mean? You actually get the basis of what they need. Maybe they need to be somebody on time. Maybe they need somebody to take down the webs off the light fixtures. Whatever it is, they give you that in that answer.
Yeah. Well, and that's where, when you go back to the basics, and it's always good to go back to the basics on those things. And I like what they did with that, is hitting that basic side, is it gets you to start to think, like, what do we need to go back to? How do
Hmm.
we go back to some of the basics and kind of refresh on those? Because as you start to sell and you get into more sales, training, and you get further into it, and his book is more in depth than that. But if you get further into the actual sales side of things, you start to lose some of the basics. And it's always nice to go back. So with that class, it was good to sit through that and hear some of those basics, and it gets you thinking, and it sparks some ideas of, hey, this is what we need to do, and this is how we do it. So that was
Definitely. No, the cool thing too, I'll add to the pest posse is what I appreciated about what Foster and Coley were talking about is you do sales in every aspect of your life without realizing it,
Mhm.
and they even had a good comparison where it's like if you have a technician that you're trying to push into the sales realm who wants to do more, make more, but he's not really sure about sales, and he's convincing himself or selling himself that he's not a good salesperson based on all these things, he's giving reasons, and they flipped it and said, you're literally selling me on why you're not a good salesperson.
Mhm.
Go out there and sell, you know
Yeah.
and a little bit about on what we do on our end. It's like it we try, at least for me, when I'm out there doing sales and I'm out there making cold contacts, I walk into a gas station or a taqueria or something, and the owner comes out and he's like, well, well, how much are your services? And he's expecting like a hard price, and he's expecting everything. At least the way we do it on the pest control side, it's, well, it really depends on what you need here. This is
Mhm.
my first time walking in here. I don't know if you have rodents. I don't know if you have cockroaches. I don't know. And the cool thing is, once you actually put that out there and just say, "Hey, I'm here to help solve whatever problems you have," instead of just try to sell you on shit you don't need, it actually drops the bar down where it's like, okay, they actually get on your level and actually have a good conversation on how we can make this work. So,
Yeah, honestly. Um, all right, let's get on to the next class.
yeah,
What was your second class of the day?
I jumped right across the hallway to an MGK class. It was the second um, part of the class, so I missed the first part, but it was a thought leader, employee engagement. Um, what I got from the class is Kathleen, who was running the class. She's not in the pest control industry, but she's in the business marketing industry. She helps businesses kind of, tighten things up and go through certain, aspects of the P&L to, streamline it. But the majority of the class was kind of understanding, do your employees know what the onboarding process is? Do they know the expectations? Do they know, what they expect to do on the day to day? So it's kind of cool because they actually framed out like starting the employee to the employee exit. And she actually highlighted the employee exit and how that's supposed to look like, because a lot of people just kind of deal with it as it comes up. You have things come up, people moving, different circumstances where people do have to leave the business. And it's shouldn't ever be a negative thing, unless there was some malpractice involved. But the whole
Yeah.
point of it was, do your employees understand what's the onboarding process look like? Or more importantly, she was asking us, do you understand?
Mhm.
She asked around the room, she was like, how long does it take to somebody to get onboarded? And the answers were wild. Like someone said 3 days, and someone said 6 months, and everyone's looking at each other like, what the hell are you guys talking about?
Yeah.
At least for us, when I actually got my turn to answer, it was like, well, we bring people in, get their initial paperwork in. At least the app training takes about a week or so, and then field training takes a couple more weeks. If they're licensed, it shortens it a little bit. If they're not licensed, you put it about a month. So I was like, I guess the onboarding process is about a month for the average person here. And then it kind of got me thinking. I'm like, damn, I really don't know, So it was kind of cool for kind of lay it out there, but a lot of it was culture. And the cool thing is we had some breakup sessions where I actually had a chance to speak in front of the class, which is cool. So they broke it up into different sections. My section of that, was like a 7-part process from onboarding to person leaving the company. The
Mhm.
one we had was the fifth step, where it was uh, how do your employees find fulfillment in their career as a pest control technician? So we broke out into different groups. There was about 8 of us there. There was like 2 operators, a sales rep, somebody who had no idea what was going on, and then me in there. And they were talking about kind of things that they were doing with their own company, which is kind of cool. Like
Yeah.
one guy, for just not to dive too deep into it, but one guy was saying, he allots a little bit of time for community service, where he'll pay like their technicians to go for a day to do something that they actually want to do. And, just weird things, like something that we probably wouldn't do, but
Yeah.
it was kind of interesting hearing that the fact that people were trying to get people connected and feel like they have a purpose. And
Mm.
when I got up there and spoke on the mic, I was like, what am I going to say? So I got up there and I said, you know, we spray bugs, we protect homes from bugs and rodents, so on that surface level, it might be hard to see, like, where you actually, have a quote unquote purpose. But, what I emphasized on is you find that purpose and you make it purposeful for you. And I gave an example. It's like me, I'm about to have a baby. I'm going to get married soon. I just got, this ownership position, so it's like there's a lot of purpose attached behind that. So the day to day stuff, even it might be mundane and repetitive, it's like there's that purpose and there's that goal. But
Mhm.
that purpose is the same for everybody else. So her side was saying getting to understand them and know. And cool thing is, we actually had kind of a back and forth disagreement, because she was very much like, your employees are like family, your team is like family. And I'm like, well, I don't know about that. I'm like, I like a lot of things you're saying, but I'm not sure about that. But
Okay. No, that's good. Okay. Well, at least you got some good stuff from that class. That was a positive one then.
It was. It was.
Okay. Um, on mine, I went to mapping out the multiverse of remote monitoring data.
Okay.
That one was an interesting one. This one has always been a good topic, and I've always been against a lot of the monitoring devices that are electronic or Wi-Fi or cellular, um, just because of the price point. That was the main thing. I like it. I think it's a great idea. I just think the pricing is so out of whack. We couldn't do that. Um, and this guy, I kind of had the same experience. So that he's like, "Hey, we just had lunch. Everyone stand up, right?" So we all standed up. We were all standing, and he says a question. I don't even remember what it was. Big majority of people sat down. Then he asked another question, and everybody else sat down. It was just me and another lady up there. And he's like, "Well, why are you even in my class?" And I'm like, "Well, because I'm waiting for someone to wow me with some information." And she's like, "I'm just curious." Sat down. But I mean, I was more of like, no, I want to know exactly what's going on. Why do you think this is such a positive thing? Because I know you guys are just pushing product.
Yeah.
And whoever makes their product, of course, they're gonna believe it and they have to.
Hmm.
You have to if you're a good salesman, you have to believe in your product. Um, but as the class went on, it really broke down to the data that they're getting and he brought up one really good point, is essentially if you have really lazy technicians, the data is going to keep track. It's going to keep track of the data for you. So when the next technician arrives, he already knows we've had traps set off in these areas of a warehouse. We've had this much bait taken out of these bait stations, and we know that. Now that's if you're constantly switching up technicians, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a lazy tech and you're constantly switching up techs, they're not keeping proper information and proper notes in the account, then the data works, and that's when you would want to. So I guess it kind of goes back. What I pulled from it is really depends on your business model.
Sure.
If you're training your guys to put in the proper notes and to do the proper follow up, the next guy who goes out there is going to know exactly where that other guy left off,
Hmm.
without skipping a beat. Now, if you don't and you don't really care and you have high turnover, but you have highly sensitive accounts, get remote devices so it keeps it up to speed for you. You
Sure.
know, you're having high turnover. You're constantly throwing out a new guy at a new building. Get it, get it.
Hmm.
You
That's a good
have.
point.
Um, so that was that one. I'm still there. I've talked about it on, if you go back and listen to our other episodes, we talk a little bit more about the trapping programs now that they have out there and the remote devices. So it's actually nice what they've changed about it. But that one with mapping out the multiverse, I actually left early. He got to a point where it was just like there was no more information coming out of him. Um,
Yeah.
so not as good as the sales one, with Pest Posse. Some of the classes, that's just what you get. It's kind of an up and
Hmm.
down. And that was one of them where it was kind of it was decent information. I pulled something, you can always pull something from something, right? I mean, the
Of course.
classes, you can always get some information, but that's where that one sat. For the last class of the day, what was yours?
So I just realized I actually flipped and I forgot the
Oh,
actual first class was the how to unlock sales success for field technicians. So I went to this class before the Pest Posse class. So real
okay.
quick, won't spend too much time on this. This was the first one of the day. It was sponsored by Field Routes. And Field Routes, if you guys are using that, have actually had an updated sales feature, which has been phenomenal. I will say, of all the things that I have had negative to say about Field Routes, this is something they've done very well. We have an older technician who actually is, has a hard time with technology and getting him up to speed on that, and it's been very user friendly, and he's gotten a ton of sales in the 3 weeks he's been doing it now. So when I saw this class, how to unlock sales success for your field technicians, I was like, great, like this has to be on the new sales app and the new how it integrates and how we put in notes and billing and everything. And the class was good, it just was not what I was looking for. And really the extent of the class was equipping technicians to be able to upsell, which is an obvious natural. Like you should have add-ons in the truck. Technicians should know the price of add-ons. They should know the price of basic services.
Mhm.
But it was actually one that I stepped out of as well. And nothing against the guy. I think it was a great class. It just wasn't really what I was looking for. And I
Mhm.
stepped out at the point where he asked everybody, who is a salesperson on your team? And he was getting the entire class to say, everybody. And I just, that, and I understand the point and I appreciate what he's saying because, yes, obviously, everybody should be selling in the company. But more specific, I think I was looking for something different. So, like you said,
Mhm.
even though it wasn't directly for me, I took as much of it as I could to try to just tighten some things on our end. Just the basic technician have the price sheets. Do they understand what the add-ons look like? Do they understand how to do the follow-ups with those? And that was kind of the first class in a quick nutshell.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and then okay, so yeah, then my mapping out the multiverse was the first class, and then it was the
Hmm.
second class. Yeah, my class was navigating today's challenging
Yeah.
workforce, and I, that one's a hard one because it's really opinion based,
Hmm.
and it's really feeling based. Unfortunately, on this one, um, this lady she ended up buying the company from her dad that he built, and then she took over and she's been kind of doing her things. They kind of she threw out some stuff. I wasn't impressed. She talked about a 4-day work week. Guys, don't get excited. I got excited. Don't get excited. It's not what you think. Um, I thought that she rolled out a 4-day work week with everyone. That's not what it was. It was a 4-day work week, and it was actually a 4 on, 4 days that you worked, and then you had the longer weekend, and then you had to do 5 days, and then you went back to 4 days, and then you went to 5 days, and then you went to 4 days and 5 days, and it was only for upper management. It was not for technicians, so don't get excited.
Sorry,
Uh,
guys.
Sorry, yeah, I apologize for that.
Hmm.
So it was for salaried employees, essentially. Hey, we're gonna cut the number of days you're working to make it a little bit easier on you, make you happier. But the guys that are still running a route, screw you. You still have to do 5 days a week, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where I was like, okay, come on. And then some of the other things it was navigating is she was talking about how she couldn't get her technicians to do more than 10 stops a day, which that threw me back in my seat because I'm like, what? Your guys can't do more than 10 a day? Like,
What are you doing at these services?
yeah, like, yeah,
How
yeah,
much drive time is between each one? Yeah.
like, you need a whole new system. Like, something is going really wrong here. Like,
Yeah.
you hired a bunch of idiots. I don't know. I don't get
Yeah.
it. A bunch of lazy people. I don't know. But
Yeah.
she was just talking about that and kind of navigating and what they've changed. And they were doing raises every quarter, and she stopped getting thank yous from people. Um, and I'm like, well, what are you raising? We talked about this, and it was like, well, what was your raise how are you even giving out a raise every quarter for people who can't even do 10 appointments a day?
It's like 13 cents every quarter. Yeah.
Well, and that's what I mean. It's like, okay, so you give $1 a year or whatever, you try to keep it with inflation, and it's 3% or up to 8% every year, and that's what you're giving your people, right? And so it's like, well, what are you doing on a quarterly basis? Yeah, you're
Mhm.
giving me 10 cents. Oh, whoop-de-doo, over the next 3 months, that's going to equate to like $15.
Yeah.
Wow. Like, holy
Before
crap.
taxes. Yeah.
Yeah, just give me the $15 cash and let's call it a day, like,
100%.
why, it's a slap in the face, so I look at that and say, when you're navigating today's challenging workforce and what you're running into, are you actually are you creating that for yourself, or are you actually going through it? And that's where I take back on some of these classes and say, okay, you're just projecting your problems and assuming
Mhm.
that how you're doing it is the correct way. And it may not be. It may be absolutely terrible. and you just think it's the best way, and you're just creating more work for yourself and really stupid meetings and stupid little raises here and there in hopes that that's going to create something different.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's kind of what I pulled from that is, stepping back and looking at what we're doing and how we've been doing things and changing. It's actually been for the positive and the good, and it hasn't been bad. And where they're at 60 years in or whatever they created, and they're doing, I think, 13 million a year. I look at it as we're doing just fine.
Oh yeah.
Thank you for the class. Thank you for standing up there. Um, and I'm glad that we're going to pass you here shortly. You just opened up, you lifted your skirt. We saw everything. We know what's going on, and it looks like a mess over there.
I actually remember right when you came out of that class, you said, "Hey, I was talking to them. They do about 13 million in, annual revenue. How many employees do you think they have?" And I was like,
Oh yeah,
"Twice as
that's
many
right.
employees that we have." And I was like, "What do they have? Like 15, 20?" And it was like 75. And I stopped what I was doing and I was like, "They have 75 employees." I'm like, and obviously, all due respect, it's like, but if we had 75 employees and that established and that long of a history, it's like we would be quadrupling at least, that revenue.
Oh yeah. Oh, easy. And I
Hmm.
mean, and what they're paying and how much they're paying and things like that. I sit back and say, "Oh my gosh,
Hmm.
if your dad is alive, he's gonna beat the living shit out of you at some point, because you're gonna tank the company. You're gonna ruin it."
100%.
And I mean, some of the things there, it's just like it's stupidity.
Yeah.
And they talked about having a business coach or a life coach and stuff like that. And I think they all have their purpose, but sometimes you have to take information. This is what I've lived by
Hmm.
is I take whatever I learn and I go to the drawing board and I start to see, is this actually even feasible? Would it
Hmm.
work? Does it make sense? And most of the time it doesn't.
Hmm.
It doesn't make sense. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it works, or sometimes I have to tweak it so it will work.
Yeah.
But when you get some of these life coaches, we had a guy who said his therapist said he shouldn't work. Um, I'm just like, what? What are these people doing to people? You're
Hmm.
you're creating you're creating a society that's terrible,
Yeah.
you know, and if people just take it. And that was her life coach is telling her, don't read books, don't learn, read fantasy books, and it's like, what are you doing to this lady? Are you
Yeah.
trying to help her ruin her life? Like, how is that helping her? She's not learning, she's not growing, and maybe I don't know the whole story or the context of it, but what she said, I'm sitting back there like, I don't know who this person is that you're talking to, but you need to fire them and
Hmm.
do it quick because it's not helping, it's hurting.
Yeah.
Especially when you got your guys that can't even do 10 appointments a day. Like, I
Hmm.
would start there.
Yeah. That's the first problem you need to deal with.
Yeah, yeah. So, a very interesting class, but once again, you get to pull a lot of information from each one. I won't
Hmm.
go and say, that was 100% negative or anything like that. It just shed a lot of light on, okay, what do I need to look out for and what do I need to be prepared for in the future to not do those things?
Yeah.
I need to check and keep in balance these things. I don't know what she's going through, but I can tell you if we went over there, we'd probably have half the employees and it would be doubled.
100%.
It's like the resources that they have, they could easily do it and they're just not.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
so it's always a good refresher on that.
It is. It really is.
So that was day 2. Any other input on day 2 classes at Pest World,
I
Denver?
was to say, I don't think we've missed anything. Very class heavy. So if you guys did not listen to the last or the first 2 episodes on Pest World, we actually kind of go into what Pest World is in general and then kind of the expo side of it. We did a little bit differently this year where we focused on the expo on day 1, classes day 2 and day 3, which we're going to kind of wrap up in the next episode on the Friday, the closing day of Pest World. They had some classes, had an after party, so it was great.
Mhm.
But no, I didn't have anything. Did you remember anything else?
Nope, I think that's it. Just a heavy class day, which usually is that way. They do have the expo still open these days just for everybody.
Mhm.
If you had a question about that, there is things in the morning that they do
Mhm.
that MPMA throws on, and different companies will invite, I think, distributors and whoever they're doing, business with directly.
Sure.
They'll do little breakfasts here and there. They have little activities. Sometimes they'll do a golf course that you can pay extra for and go do. Um, we don't typically go and join in on those things. It seems more to be, you know, bigger companies with distributors, and focusing on that stuff. So yeah, that was Pest World Day 2.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you guys were there, if you were in the class or running the class and you agree or disagree, we'd love to hear the feedback because we're, transparent. We want to be better. We want everyone else to be better. So guys, please send in your questions. We have our DNApestpodcast.com. We have our YouTube. We have our Facebook group. You guys know how to get a hold of us. We're still looking for guests. I know we just got back into it, but we're looking to bring back guests. We're doing an end of the month Q&A session. So please, anything Pest World related, tech related, we'd love to hear your feedback. That's how we grow and get better. And thank you again for listening to the DNA Pest Control Podcast.